How can the world's fifth largest gold reserve simply vanish? This question lies at the heart of one of Europe's darkest financial secrets. This is not merely a heist. This is the story of a total financial execution, the future of an entire nation swallowed by the shadow of war. We rewind to the mid-1930s. The place? Spain, a nation holding nearly 1,400 tons of pure gold in the deep, seemingly impenetrable vaults of the Bank of Spain. To grasp the scale, this was more gold than France and the UK held combined. At today's prices, that's well over $70 billion worth of bullion. This metal was more than money. It was the nation's economic guarantee, its political leverage, and the foundation of its stability. But in July 1936, the thin veil of peace shattered. The Spanish Civil War erupted, and from that moment, a desperate, highly secretive game began, a game to determine the fate of this colossal wealth. The Republican government knew they had to save the gold, but the critical question was, save it from whom? From the fascists or from themselves? And most importantly, where exactly would they send it? One morning, this gold, a weight equivalent to 1,400 large cargo trains, was simply gone. It vanished. How did it disappear? Who orchestrated the plan? Was it a loan, a sale, or the most audacious state-level theft in history? This is the 1,400-ton puzzle. The early days of the Civil War were defined by chaos and fear. By August 1936, General Franco's nationalist forces were advancing rapidly towards Madrid. The capital and the Bank of Spain felt increasingly vulnerable. The Republican government, desperate to secure their primary financial asset, knew the gold could not remain in the path of the approaching army. The first move was a domestic one, a transfer designed for temporary safety. The order came down from the Minister of Finance, Juan Negrin, and the President of the Republic, Manuel Azaña. The plan was initially to move the gold to Cartagena, home to a major naval base and considered politically secure at the time. The logistical challenge was immense. Moving 1,400 tons requires unprecedented coordination. Over several weeks in August, the vaults were secretly emptied. The gold was molded into standardized bars and loaded into thousands of sealed wooden crates, each weighing hundreds of kilograms. These crates were then covertly transported by armored trucks and heavily guarded trains. The convoys moved only at night, navigating a nation consumed by conflict. Every soldier, every driver, every railway worker involved was sworn to absolute secrecy. This initial transport was fraught with danger. They avoided skirmishes, navigated bombed tracks, and bypassed areas of heavy fighting. Yet, they succeeded. In Cartagena, the gold was placed in deep, concrete underground storage vaults known as Algameca Base, specifically designed to withstand naval attack. The government breathed a temporary sigh of relief. The wealth was safe from Franco. But the war was escalating globally, and the new danger wasn't domestic, it was international. The Republican cause was failing, and they needed foreign aid fast. This need for international aid led them to their most fateful decision, a deal struck with a foreign power whose intentions were shrouded in revolutionary dogma and personal ambition: Joseph Stalin's Soviet Union. The Republican government was isolated. The Western democracies, France, Britain, and the United States, had adopted a policy of non-intervention, refusing to sell weapons to the beleaguered Spanish regime. Only one major power offered consistent military aid: Joseph Stalin's Soviet Union. The price for that aid? The 1,400 tons of gold. In September 1936, the decision was formalized in extreme secrecy. The operation to move the gold to Russia was codenamed Operation A. The official justification was that the Soviet Union would hold the gold in safekeeping and manage payments for the military supplies Spain desperately needed. The operation was overseen by a small, trusted group dubbed the Shadow Group. Key figures included Alexander Orlov, the head of Soviet NKVD in Spain, and Spanish officials like José Giral. The true extent of the agreement, whether it was a loan, a security deposit, or the most audacious state-level theft in history, remains fiercely debated. The logistics of Operation A were staggering. 4 Soviet cargo ships, the Neva, Kine, Kuban, and Kursk, were dispatched to Cartagena. Over several tense nights in late October 1936, the operation commenced. The wooden crates, now containing an estimated 700,000 kilograms of gold, were hoisted from the underground Algameka vaults. Every crate was manually loaded onto the Soviet vessels. The entire port area was sealed off by Soviet security forces under Orlov's command, effectively making the Spanish government a sideline observer to the transfer of its own wealth. The ships set sail across the Mediterranean, their precious cargo a state secret. The official Soviet destination was the port of Odessa in the Black Sea. This is where the factual trail becomes murky, contradictory, and deeply suspicious. The first act of confusion was the official receipt. The gold was counted in Moscow. The official report, signed by Orlov and Soviet officials, confirmed the receipt of 510,000 kilograms of gold. This was a significant amount, but it was immediately noted by some Spanish representatives that the total weight seemed deliberately vague. The actual value was recorded not in weights, but in old Spanish pesos, a currency undergoing massive devaluation due to the war, making future reconciliation deliberately difficult. Furthermore, the management of the gold was placed entirely under the control of the Soviet State Bank by direct order of Joseph Stalin. The Spanish Republican government was given no meaningful oversight, only occasional, often late and confusing reports on how the gold was supposedly being spent on war materials. The reports themselves were alarming. They showed Spain being charged extortionate prices for obsolete or damaged military equipment. For instance, planes were often billed at 3 or 4 times their market value. It quickly became clear that the gold was being used not just to fund a war, but to massively subsidize the Soviet military-industrial complex and the interests of the Comintern. Spanish officials, including Indalecio Prieto, later publicly lamented the situation, calling the entire episode a gold ransom demanded by the Soviets for their intervention. The Spanish Union had effectively created a financial black hole. The gold went in, and only overpriced, often inadequate military supplies came out. The overwhelming majority of the original 1,400 tons was simply absorbed into the Soviet financial system, never to be seen by the Spanish people again. Decades later, 3 dominant theories persist, attempting to explain the remaining gold and the political forces at play. Theory 1. The total cost, the exorbitant price of survival. This theory argues that while the prices were criminally inflated, the gold was technically spent entirely on the war effort, including salaries for Soviet advisors, shipping costs, and propaganda. The cost of Spain's short-lived survival was simply the theft of its financial sovereignty by an unscrupulous ally. They were fleeced, not robbed in the traditional sense. Theory 2. The Stalinist seizure, the personal cash. This theory, fueled by defectors and historians, posits that a huge portion of the gold was never tied to official war expenditures. Instead, it was siphoned off by Stalin for his personal use to fund global intelligence operations, destabilize opposing regimes, or even bolster secret military research. There are no paper trails for this. The gold simply vanished from the Soviet accounting system and became part of Stalin's shadow state treasury. Theory 3. The ghost gold, the Mediterranean diversion. Due to the chaos in Cartagena and the tight control held by NKVD agents like Orlov, some historians suspect that a fraction of the gold, perhaps several hundred tons, was diverted before reaching Odessa. It may have been traded on the black market for foreign currency or used to pay off key players in the covert global arms trade, creating a vast, untraceable treasure that remains hidden today. The key to all these theories is the complete lack of accountability. The Soviet government's own records were highly guarded, and the few Spanish officials who knew the details either died in exile or refused to speak, fearing retaliation. The trail of the 1,400 tons of gold leads directly to the highest levels of global politics powers, where records are destroyed and inconvenient truths are silenced. The Spanish gold transfer, a desperate act of national preservation, ultimately became a case study in betrayal. The Spanish Republic, having lost the war, never recovered its 1,400 tons of gold. The new fascist regime under Franco repeatedly demanded its return, but Moscow consistently denied the claims, stating the gold had been fully expended. This event stands as a permanent marker of how devastating political and financial malfeasance can be. The true crime here was not committed by a single master thief, but by a convergence of national desperation, unchecked power, and the terrifying price of alliances forged under duress. When hundreds of tons of gold vanish, the economic independence and sometimes the very future of an entire nation vanishes along with it. Today, the fate of that gold remains an open, painful secret. The failure to be fully accounted for, the unexplained costs, the disappearance of official records, this was a game of politics and wealth played out in the dark. Where did this ghost train finally stop? This is a puzzle that still demands a solution. For the darkest secrets are often paved with the brightest treasures, and sometimes the tightest security is used to hide the highest form of betrayal. What are your theories about this state-level disappearance? Was it an absolute theft or merely the cost of a losing war? Leave your thoughts and hypotheses in the comments below.